Welcome everyone to this special We the People's briefing. This is a Braver Angels event and an initiative of the We the People's Project at Braver Angels. The mission of We the People's Project is to be a place where everyday Americans get time at the podium and to hear from working people on the issues of the day. And so we're doing this at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, because this is the one time that our speaker today, Charles Stallworth, a union rail worker, was able to join us. And he could say more about that, it's related to the issue that we're talking about. So with apologies for the last minute nature of this and also for the time of this, we wanted to make this work with Charles's schedule. And so we're very honored that we're to have Charles Stallworth with us. So that this is about, Charles is a union rail worker and he's going to be discussing the state of the possible rail worker strike and whether or not the workers will accept the deal or whether we're headed toward a strike. And Charles has written several articles in the last year at newsweek.com that I encourage you to check out. One of which was just a couple of weeks ago about what was then a looming rail strike. And so be sure to check that out after the call. You can Google his name. And to facilitate this interview, we're going to have about 30 minutes of interviewing Charles, and then we're going to open it up for Q&A. So to do our interview, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Jerry Silberman, who serves on the We the People's Project leadership team. Jerry is a former factory worker and a longtime union organizer. So Jerry, over to you.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, Charles.
How are you doing?
Good, good. So I'd like to ask you to start just by giving a little basic background on yourself, how long you've worked for the railroad, describe your work routine and your responsibilities, and then tell us about what are the issues that you think are serious enough to strike about if you can't get a decent deal.
I think the first thing that I started off in maintenance away, which is working on the tracks. I was with BMWE, Brotherhood of Maintenance Away employees, and I started doing basically bridge maintenance at first, and then that's all encompassed under some railroads. It is, some of it isn't, but in the one I work for, bridge maintenance and track maintenance that's just two different seniorities that and two different skills that you can have, but you're in the same union and it's still all under the same thing. And after that, I moved over to to train service, which is what I'm in now. So train service and train service is really, which is basically you're moving trains, switching cars and things like that. Now, that's the thing that honestly is getting highlighted when Bernie Sanders made his speech and everything. That really is, transportation really is where that, I guess, the heartstrings sort of subject got the most attention. But I also wanted to, in this video, talk about maintenance, because a lot of people, seniority is very it's very precious to a lot of people. I was fortunate enough to have worked on both sides, and I kind of know both sides actually have different issues, but both sides were still part of this. So that I started in 2011, and so that was in track maintenance, and now I'm over in transportation, which is as a conductor and a remote control engineer.
So as a remote control engineer, what do you do?
Well, you're basically in a switching job, in a switching operation. You have the remotes that actually took jobs years ago away from engineers. So you actually are in remote control engineer, but you're like a remote control engineer, but in a switching operation. So in the yard, in switching operations is where a remote control is used.
So that means there's no live person in that engine?
That, depending on if you are, no, not in the engine, but if you are in we're going to get in the technical part of it, but if you're in the remote control zone, no one else in that switching operation can actually get into that zone. So if you need to, let's say, drag a cut of 20 cars up, you don't have to have anyone on the engine, and you can just let it go all the way up. But the remote control zone, there's no crossings, there's no nothing, you know, so everything is in a controlled environment, basically.
Okay.
So you could send that engine, but, you know, send the engine up, and you have a switchman and a remote control operator, you know. But that used to be an engineer job up there.
So now talk a little bit about your hours of work, because this is one of the issues that's been in the news about this on-call situation.
Yep.
What's your normal schedule? How often are you on call? How quickly do you have to report if you get called?
There's variations of this, but it's basically at every railroad is the same. At the railroad I work for, if you're in the yard, there's call times. There's like there's 3 shifts. So basically like first, second, and third. There's call times from, I think it's 4:30 to 6:30 for jobs that start, you know, in the morning. They can only call you between 4:30 and 6:30, you know, for these jobs. Now this is the extra board. You know, I'm gonna try to give you without getting too deep into this, I'm gonna try to give you just a bird's eye. The extra board is 24/7, 365 on call. That's just what it is. If you want to take a day off, you actually have to take yourself off the board and you only can you can take yourself off the board for more than a day, but that's generally how it works. Now, if it's not a scheduled vacation day, then that can be a day. Then what will happen is that day you get a certain number of points if you take off, even if it's, you know, with it being unpaid. Now, if you're on 24/7, 365 on call, and you have, once you are called, you'll get 2 hours to have to report to work, no matter where you are. So you're tethered to work.
But are there, Charles, I'm going to interrupt you a couple of times because you're getting into the weeds. I understand most of this, but maybe our audience doesn't. You have people who are regular scheduled shifts. Everybody's not on the extra board.
Not everyone's on the extra board. Now, the higher your seniority gets, as people above you in seniority are once they retire, quit, or whatever, you can possibly get into those jobs right there. The majority of people are on that 24/7, 365 on call.
The majority of people are on the extra board. Are you?
Yeah, I'm on the extra board myself.
Okay. All right. So
now let me say this. In the yard, like I said, it was the scheduled call time of 4:30 to 6:30 for a first shift job. Then it's 12:30 to 2:30 for a second shift. You know, if you get called any time in between here, you got to be there in 2 hours. And then there's I think the 10:30 to 12:30 shift.
So at the same time, you don't have any guaranteed hours of work on a weekly basis.
No.
So you might work 7 days in a row, or you might work not at all. Right now, it seems like everybody's working a lot because they're so short on employees.
Yeah, and now on the road, which is I'm on the road extra board. Mm-hmm. Road extra board is a person that actually gets on the train and takes it out of town.
Right.
So that's my situation right now. That's 24/7, 365. You can get called anytime. So there's no specific time for that.
So what proportion of the workers on the road are in regular shifts, and what proportion are on the extra board?
There's no regular shifts. There's no regular shifts on the road. What you have on the road are pull turns, which is there's certain trains that are scheduled every single day. Let's just say keep it an easy number, 5 trains that go between here and, let's say, Houston and San Antonio. That every single day. That's just the way it is. You'll have a pull turn board that of people that are dedicated for those trains of 5 people. Now, and those trains can come at any time. They try to make them on time, but it just is what it is. Now, if any of those people get called off of, or call off or lay off or they can't come to work, that's when they pull from the extra board. You see what I'm saying?
No,
so the
yeah,
extra board,
I know how that. I'm just
yeah.
I mean, I'm just shocked that there aren't more people on regular schedules.
Yeah. No. Yeah. For the road board, not at all.
Is that a new situation?
From what I understand, no. And if you're on a regular term, what's called a regular term, if you're on that, if you take off, you get more points, because at that point they feel as if because they should have that person for the trip out. So
let me switch to what are the specific changes you think, or what are the particular issues that you think are worth striking over?
The particular issues for many, and it really is being able to take days off to try to reset. I know people. I know ones talk about, doctor's appointments and missing, and I know those are things right there that'll get a lot of people saying, "Oh." But the thing is that doctor's appointments and things like that, but then also time with family. And a lot of times these guys and ladies are saying, "Hey, we'll take the days even unpaid," and the railroads don't even want to do that. You see, so PTO would be nice, but I know I've talked to a lot of folks out there. They'll say, at least give me 2 days per pay period, as we get the 1st through the 15th and the 16th through the end of the month. At least give me 2 days in between in the pay period, just to be able to take off, even if it's unpaid. And you can't do that.
Do you get standard overtime pay?
Yeah, we do. We get standard overtime pay, but that's all depending on on the road. That's depending on if you have to stop for any reason, because trains can't just, you're not the only train on the railroad, right. So you don't, if you got to stop in a siding or something happens, maintenance away is working on tracks or something like that. But if you get there under 8 hours, the pay is not that good. Now, some railroads have what's called trip pay, which there's actually one line from here going north, from Houston going north, that does have trip pay. But the issue with trip pay is that, and which is great and everything, but a lot of times they're a lot slower to come get you off the train. You see, so once you get past your 8 hours, or once you get past your certain number of hours, you start actually losing money because now at this point they're not as zealous, or they're not wanting to come get you off the train, or not as motivated, because they're not paying you anymore. They've already paid you the trip rate. That's the one side. That's the one downfall of trip rate. Trip rate is great and not having to worry about overtime, but once you're over past 8 hours, now you're starting to lose.
So I understand. I read in your article that your maximum PTO that you get up to is 4 weeks a year.
Yeah. Now explain to people what PTO is, because that's not a term a lot of people will understand. Well, it's just paid time off. So it's we get on the road. You get, depending on how many years you have. The first year is 1 week. Mm-hmm. And I want to say it's 3 personal leave days, 3 or 4, and then the second year you get 2 weeks. Then after 8 years you get 3 weeks, and I want to say it's after 17 or so, or something like that. That's when you get 4 weeks, and
but
you
that
get your
that has to cover both your sick time and any vacation time that you would want to take, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Now you get the PL days. Now, here's the thing. You can get those 4 PL days that they give you, but the issue is that a lot of times when you want to use them, they don't want to give them to you, especially if it's on the weekend.
Right.
So if you say, hey, I got something going on Saturday, we can't.
Okay. So there's no guarantee that you can use those days when you want, even if you give them advance notice.
Yep. Even the vacation days, there's no guarantee you can use those. You have to put what you want your vacation to be at the beginning of the year. Now, if you say if you just say, hey, I want to do 1 week at the beginning, you know, in the first 6 months, 1 week in the second 6 months, and then the other, like once you get to 4 weeks, you say, hey, the others, I just kind of want to float. You can't really do that. You can't just use them. Hey, 2 days here. They might let you, but there's a good chance.
Okay.
You know,
so
10% chance
so reforming this system to give people more time and more discretion.
Yeah, more time. Yeah,
to you is a key issue.
Yeah, and it's not just to me; it's to a lot of the people.
Right. Well,
yeah.
Obviously,
Yeah.
it wouldn't be a strike threat if it wasn't an issue to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Okay. So Charles, let me ask you. Let me switch gears here a little bit. We've seen in the news about negotiations going on in Washington. Who's representing you in those negotiations?
Smart UTU is and the BLET.
Okay. How many working engineers are at that bargaining table?
Not that I've seen, none.
None.
That I've seen, no. It seems, you know, and that was that's one of the things I've talked to people about is, and I've even brought up on Twitter. It's one of those things. It's like when as much as I say, hey, that's great that Bernie Sanders brought that out. Whenever he's having a we the peoples or we're workers, this and that, he always only has the leaders. It's
right.
never.
But none of those
workers.
people who are sitting in that bargaining table are going to go back to work in a locomotive.
Exactly. No. And see, that was my issue with what Bernie, because he kind of, that's cool. He kind of had the bird's eye view, but it would have been nice to have someone that actually works the job.
Well, so you know, because I'm with a union that represents healthcare workers, and when we bargain a contract, everybody at that table, with one exception, we have one staff person there who's a technical expert on the bargaining. Everybody at that table is a worker. Everybody on that table is going back into the hospital to go to work, and we have to fight with the boss to release them to go to the bargaining table. So that to me is a problem. So how often do you get a report back on what's happening in bargaining?
We get a pretty fairly often, email to every day, every couple of days, to let us know what's going on. And that's pretty much what it is.
What's going on right now in terms of bargaining?
Just a vote, and everyone's trying to say, kind of saying what they want to do and what they don't want to do. And I think one of the things you see, like in the media, is everyone thinks they're only looking at money, and money really wasn't the biggest, issue in this. Where we've been, honestly, I feel like we've been okay on the money for a while.
So how do you think that your union leadership has given the public an accurate picture of what the issues are?
I don't really. I don't think they've given enough of all the issues. Like I said before, PTO is one thing. Being able to take off for doctor's appointment is one thing, and I know that's great for headlines. But there's other things as far as future-proofing jobs, or talking about on the maintenance side, the railroads hiring contractors to do jobs. That's not right either. They laid off all these people, and now we're bringing all these contractors on the maintenance side. Those things are not being talked about.
Okay. Are those things being bargained over?
Not that I've seen, no. As far as and that's one of the things I haven't actually been able to bring out yet in the articles, because a lot of people we're stuck on these. We are stuck on the bigger issues or the more flashy issues. But like I said before, when it comes to PTC, that's a pretty big issue right there. That's not being just really highlighted. Which is. Go ahead.
Let me ask you what preparations. Now you're on the ground here with your coworkers. What preparations are? I mean, how is the vote being conducted?
It's being voted. We're getting sent the ballots and everything that we can vote once we're, yes, yay or nay through the ballots in the mail.
Okay. So are they giving you the complete text of the proposal to vote on?
They are giving a complete text of the proposal.
And has there been any preparation or discussion as to what a strike would look like, how your picketing would be, what you would be doing if you stop the trains?
Yeah, we have. Yeah, they've given us, exactly what we're supposed to do, like exactly like if it happens while we're on a train out, headed wherever we're going, how it would go. Even the company has said that, if we were on a train where they will give us actual, vehicles, to give us transportation back to our cars, yada, yada, yada. So everything is in place as far as that goes. The union and the company.
So do you think that now, of course, the companies are saying that this would cause huge problems in the economy if you went on strike. How much does that concern you?
It concerns me a lot, especially when I feel as if of course it does. I mean, it concerns me personally, but then also with the economy as far as that goes. But when there's ways to, in my opinion, sometimes we might have to think outside the box as far as getting things where we need to get things, and it seems like I'm not going to say it's just the company. It could also be the union membership to say, hey, look, let's try to figure out ways, first of all, to when there's furloughs and things like that, to keep people working. There's ways to save jobs as far as that goes. There's ways to, hey, why don't we, instead of let's talking about PTO, because like I said, there's a lot of people I've talked to that say, I'll take 2 days unpaid. That's not my preferred, way of doing this, but two days unpaid per pay period. And that's not the greatest financially, but that at least gives me, enough time to.
Well, how's the financial position of the railroads?
They're pretty good. I mean, if I'm to believe what they've said and what their financials are, I mean, they're making plenty of money. The CEOs are making plenty of money. They're spending a lot of money on diversity and inclusion and all these other departments, tens of millions of dollars and things on that. So, the money's there.
Usually is. Okay, so I'm gonna stop it there in terms of the questions. I think we have a lot of people out here who might have additional questions for you. And I just wanted to ask you one more thing before we go on. Railroad unions have been around for 130 years, 160 years, right? And, when I was a young man, a locomotive engineer was a damn good job, right? So how did things slide?
Honestly, I think a lot of it is because of the time off. I honestly believe that that's what it is, because the work is not, the work is, it is rough, but it's understood, that of what you have to do. But the biggest thing is the morale is really bad. And that, and it isn't necessarily because of pay, it's more because when you're getting paid, and I'm not trying to say that the pay didn't need to go up, it did. But the thing is that, yeah, okay, so you're making more money, you're able to get some overtime, you're able to get these things. But when it comes to your family life and things like that, you're not able to really be there to, take advantage of that.
And, okay, and one final question. You mentioned Bernie Sanders. Is it from your point of view, are there is either party or any particular elected officials really concerned on your behalf?
I don't really believe so. And as much as like I said, I like what he did. I liked him bringing that up, but I would have loved to see him go and say, hey, look, after a 1 minute, him on the box a little bit, him to have got an actual conductor engineer to come up and give an actual boots on the ground description of exactly what's going on, because it wasn't all just they need to take off for dock support. There's more to it than that. I would have liked to have seen him talk about, like I keep wanting to talk about, is I still know plenty of people in maintenance away. We get all the I guess the quote unquote headlines, but in maintenance away, how they're constantly hiring more and more contractors that are and they're paying these contractors less and less. And I've worked next to these contractors, and many of them know no English at all. I mean, this is just the truth. And people can think of that what they want, but it's the truth. So now where you were paying this welder or this trackman, which I was a trackman swinging a mall hammer in the sun in El Paso all day. I did it, And you're talking about these are jobs Americans won't do. Americans will do them. But the thing is that if you're not paying if you're not paying for it, it's harder to find that.
Yeah, well, just a personal comment. All of these issues are subject to bargaining.
Yeah.
And I just wonder where the union leadership has been over the years to let these things happen. Because
Yep.
we have contracts that say, in my union, we have contracts that say you can have 5% subcontracted, and then that's it.
Yep.
Right. So, all right. I'll let that go. This is your show, not mine, and we'll open it up to questions from our viewers.
All right.
So,
all right,
David,
excellent.
You're gonna have to call on people.
Yes, and so Q&A time, and present your question to Charles. Charles, I'm going to ask the first question here. I'm interested. Tell us more about So Jerry asked you about kind of whether you think any political party is adequately representing the workers in this. Let me ask you about your own political leanings. If I'm correct, you told me that if anything, you lean to the right. Yeah. I'm curious about, the Republican Party, particularly since Donald Trump has tried to be more, consciously, for working class workers. And so I guess what you make of that and how you think the Republican Party is doing. And also, what's among your union rail workers, what are the politics there like? Like, is it pretty diverse politically? Or how would you describe that?
I can tell you this, among the rail workers, overwhelmingly right-leaning.
Overwhelmingly right-leaning.
Oh, absolutely. And I honestly believe that the Republicans really missed an opportunity here to step up. None of them said anything that I've seen. None of them said anything about in support of the workers at all. And I'm sitting here saying, you have these very far, not very far, but pretty right-leaning people, just Southern right-leaning guys and ladies that are sitting there talking about, hey, what Bernie Sanders brings, So I mean, what a missed opportunity for them to say, hey, look, let me just go ahead and step up and try to call attention to this issue.
Okay, all right. John, you're up. You've got a question.
Yeah, and a comment. Charles, as a retired physician who's been on call a lot, I know how noxious it is. And man, I'm sympathetic to you on that. I had read that basically if the railroads set aside 1/40th of their profits, they could hire the workers so you guys could have a little bit more decent life. And there's an activist investor, Bill Ackerman, who has been convincing them not to do that. I think there are players on the sidelines that that are kind of muddying the waters. I don't see how you can continue to work under the circumstances that you're faced with. And this, I hate to see a strike and what it's going to do to the supply chains and the economy, but they need to treat you better. So good luck to you, man.
Yeah, that I know. I talked to a younger guy the other day. He's hired in February. He's you know, so he's still pretty new. He said he hired in with 30 people. There's 6 people left now. And it used to take to lose that many people. You were usually going to lose that many people to lose 24 people within that short of time. That would take 10, 15 years for that, for people to move on, leave, get in trouble, whatever, you know. So it really is also one of those things where people are not willing to put up with the schedule. You know, there's a lot of people saying, hey, yeah, you can make decent money, you can make pretty good money, but, I'm not going to give up every, be on call or tethered to my phone or to the board to try to see where am I at on the board? Can I take this drink of alcohol, So, a lot of people aren't willing to do that these days.
Right. And Charles, I think you told me you're on the board right now. Is that right? You're
yeah. So it's like I can get called at any time right now.
And you're off today because you had a dentist appointment. Is that right?
Well, I actually missed that dentist appointment. I was going to get these braces tightened up, but I actually took a train from Louisiana into Houston. I actually drove out to Louisiana, took the train into Houston, and I'm home instead of having to be in a hotel.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I was going to make it, but I didn't make it in time. So.
All right. Okay.
So in a little bit, I'll have to get a train and take it back out towards Louisiana, then drive all the way out.
All right. Rita, let's go to you.
Charles, thank you so much for going through what you're going through to be here with us. We really appreciate it. Did I understand you to say, I just want to make sure that I'm clear, a regular schedule is a rarity is that correct? Are you saying that most people don't have just a regular work schedule?
Yeah, in the yard, you can generally have, so in the yard you'll have switching jobs that it's basically 3 shifts, like, and they only have so many of those switching jobs, that they have that you can have. So, and for different industries. So let's say you and everyone on the call had let's just, I don't know how many people are on the call, but let's just say there's 15 people. Each one of you own an industry. Now, we can't get to all of you in one day, so you have different switch jobs that can get to, let's say, 3 of you. And so there's 5 different, crews of the 3 people: switchman, engineer, and a conductor. So you'll have all those. So now, if any one of those people calls off, then they pull from the extra board.
I see. Okay.
You see, so so the extra board, you're guaranteed 24/7, 360, because these shifts are going on at all times of the day.
Right.
Some of them start in the morning, some start in the afternoon. It just depends on when you got it. So you're liable to be called at 24/7, 365.
Very, very illuminating. I mean, my mom always said, unless you walk a mile in a man's shoes, you just don't know. So thanks so much for sharing.
Welcome.
Let's go to Kathy. Kathy, if you're able to turn on your video, we'd love to see you, but if not, no worries.
Hi, I'm not able right now, but thank you for including me. I am a union member and I'm an airline pilot. I'm actually on call myself right now as well. I had a couple of questions, but I have a lot of questions, but I'll narrow it down to 2. I was wondering, are all of the railroads in the same union? Do you have a national union for all of the different railroads, and are you on the same priority or on the same seniority list, or is it different for each railroad?
No, we had a smart. You had for the conductors you had a smart UTU, but then for the engineers usually it's the BLET, which is
Okay.
a Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers, and I think y'all are in smart too, right?
No.
Oh no, I don't know why I thought the airlines. I know I know smart represents some of the airline workers, but
Maybe some other ones, yeah.
Yeah, and so we're all basically in the same. You know, BMW ED is for maintenance away, and then I forgot who the signal people are, but the biggest ones are the BMW ED and the smart UTU and the Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers.
Okay, thanks.
And we pretty much all have the same, you know, all of them are bargained under even if it's a different. I forgot I was an iron worker up north in Chicago, and that's still under, even though it's a different union, it's still under the Brotherhood of Maintenance Away. So
okay,
it's still all being bargained under.
Kathy, go ahead. Ask a follow-up question.
Sorry about that.
Okay, thanks. So
yeah, for Teamster. Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Jerry
airlines
in the chat that BMW is part of the Teamsters union now.
Yeah.
Good to know. The airlines are subject to the RLA, which was written for the railroads. And so like the railroads, we are very restricted on self-help and the ways to get to being able to even have mediation and strike. So so as to not interrupt commerce. So I find it interesting, the angst of possibility of disrupting commerce for the railroads. It's been a long way to get here. The airlines as well have been negotiating for at least 3 years. And I'm talking about every single different airline, major airline is under negotiations right now. Question that you brought up, that you didn't have engineers at the table. We are on the opposite side of that. We mostly have pilots that are negotiating for us, and many of our pilots out on the line think that's a mistake, that we should have professional negotiators there for us. So I found it really interesting that you thought you need to have engineers at the table. So I guess the answer might be to have a combination.
Oh, absolutely.
What do you think about it?
Yeah, I don't think it should be just, but like I was saying, when it came to when Bernie Sanders got up there and said, it would have been, he can only give, so much of an account, or whoever gave him the information, or whoever, gave him his talking points. Hey, it would have been good to actually hear from someone that's actually doing the job as well. To actually, and I feel like they can be a little bit more precise on exactly the way, what things are going on. Now, one of the things I brought up in the article that you can probably, or since you're a pilot, is this PTC situation. PTC is basically autopilot for us. That's really what it is. And now, one of the things that the railroads have been trying to do for quite a while now is to take the conductor out of the cab. And one of the things I brought up in the article for Newsweek, I was like, we've already had a couple of engineers at this point have a heart attack and die on a train, and the conductor's on there, and they have to have the help desk help the conductor to control the train, to get the train to a place for a crossing to actually,
right,
to get someone off of there. So
from your perspective, it's really important to have more than one person.
Yeah, and see, so what we're being told is okay. Well, they're going to leave that alone for right now. But the thing is that it should be both people up front should be in the cab should be able to control the locomotive. And if you're not pushing for something like that, it feels as if more you're kicking it down the road just a little bit, so that we can go ahead and get what we want the next time. So in my opinion, it should be a real major push from the unions are pushing two people in the cab, yeah. But to future-proof that is to say, hey, 2 people that can operate and are qualified to actually control the train.
I want to move on to the next questioner. Thank you so much, Kathy, for it's very fascinating your perspective on this as an airline pilot. So thank you, Kathy. And by the way, I'm going to go to you, Len. One thing that we haven't talked about yet that would be maybe interesting to dive into is how the news media has covered this. And I'm thinking about, Charles, how you might, what your perspective is on the news coverage of this thus far. But let's go to Len. What's on your mind, Len?
Well, actually, yeah, that's a very interesting, David's question is very interesting, but yeah, I guess I wonder if you could speak more, you've mentioned it here and there, and how you feel about automation, the effect of automation on your jobs, the workers' jobs in your industry.
Yeah, it basically is we're relying more on the automation, but then it also, you know, and like I said before, or I've said before in other interviews, it's actually, hey, it's good to have this, you know, something, you know, to fall back on, but it also is taken away from the skill, because there's a lot of engineers that, you know, probably could be a whole lot better, you know, if they weren't sitting there relying on, because we've had the PTC go down. Like matter of fact, the train on the way that I was bringing on the way here, it lost position of where the train was. The GPS.
What is PTC? I'm sorry.
Positive train control. So that's why I said to the lady before, or why I said that it's autopilot for trains. That's what that is.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I figured, but
yeah.
Yeah.
So, and in general, is the push toward automation, Charles, is that something that the rail companies need less rail workers over the years because of this trend?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And like I said, the push has been to get single person in the locomotive. That's one of the big, and it's purely because of wanting to save money on labor.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's Carlos who's on the phone and has his hand up. Let's go to Carlos and then Irene. Carlos, you're up.
Good morning, and thank you, Charles. My last name is Hernandez. I grew up in a union family. My union wages in high school and college helped me actually graduate from college debt-free. So I have a question which you could pass. I heard the phrase non-English speaking workers. How do you believe our current methodologies at the border are propagating what you cited?
Honestly, if a company and that's is one of the issues. And before I started working the railroad, I actually worked at a small company in Houston doing tank car repair. And while I can, you know, speculate, in the situation with the railroad, the company that I was working for, I know for a fact they hired people that were in the country illegally. I know they did. I mean, it was that was a known thing. And the thing, and at the border, I honestly believe, you know, with the situation that we have there, it feels like we're first of all, we're focusing more on I think there should be more border enforcement. I think that's kind of a issue that I think a lot of people can get with. But I think we should also look at the fact that of these corporations that are really pushing for this cheaper labor that they can get. And I honestly think that a lot of the corporations are 100% behind trying to make sure that we get as much of this labor over the border as they possibly can, instead of just paying people more to do the work.
Thank you for your candidness. Appreciate it. It does. Thank you, sir.
All right.
Let's go to Irene.
I'm sorry. Let me add one more thing. a lot of people constantly talk about going after the people, those people. But honestly, when these corporations and these companies are caught hiring, they you never really see them getting hardcore fines for that. You know, it needs to be, there needs to, for you know, no one really ever wants to, it never really seems like there's such a push to go after the companies that are taking advantage of it.
All right, let's go to you, Irene.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Charles. My question had to do with the comment that you were asked about. I can't quote you, but basically that you are leaning more to the right, and I guess that would mean that you would be away from the liberal. Is that clear? I want to be clear before I complete my question.
I think I really hate to, and I think I said this before. I probably, you know, piss off conservatives, my conservative friends, as much as I piss off my liberal friends, because I'll say this. I'm, I guess, quote unquote liberal, just depending on if we have some checks and balances. So like a lot of people, I'm not as free to say, hey, look, you know, as far as welfare, let's just say, well, you know, so you know, welfare for people. I'm not as far right leaning enough to say we shouldn't have it at all. But I'm one of those people who say, hey, I just want to make sure that if a person needs to take advantage of services, social services, that you really need. So I'm not, you see what I'm saying? So I'm not really like just like some, you know, I am right leaning, but I'm also, I have some, I guess, liberal views.
Well, but I appreciate, Charles, you're not broad brushing, which I deeply appreciate, because that's always my concern when I hear that term about the broad brush. Mm-hmm. But here's my question then. So when it comes to, for example, the conversation to me is over. I mean, I'm 61 years old. I have a lot. So my concern is really the demise of the value of what we would call the middle class, which would be that you're not necessarily own the company, but you're not necessarily, you can be college educated or not, you can be trade school educated or not, but you have been able to offer and take the opportunities to improve your life, whatever way, whether born here or immigrated here. My parents came from El Salvador in 1943 and 1955, because at that time, in those eras, the United States was looking for people to help the country. Mm-hmm. The offer was that you have a middle class that you can participate in. So it feels to me now, that's why I wanted to listen to you today, because I wanted to know, do you feel that part of our right leaning, or I don't know what I don't like to use the word right or left, but I mean, you know, that leaning toward what it feels like so much control over us, it seems to be also at the cost of taking away valuing the middle class. Yeah, I'm concerned about that.
Yeah, and you know, I'm gonna try to say something here. I guess I know with this forums, you're trying to find that middle, you know, the middle ground and things that people can agree on. Everyone, even though my prior, you know, talking to people the people that I've talked to, no one is right, no matter how right leaning, no one is completely like closed off to immigration. But what's going on, like border and things like that, or I'm sorry, closed off to legal people coming over legally and saying and you know, becoming citizens. No one's having an issue with that at all. What's happening in Houston that I've seen, that there's a lot of wages are being brought down for welders and plant workers and everything else because of these contracting companies able to hire this, you know, this labor, and it ends up bringing the hourly wages down which honestly is taking people out in the middle class. It really is.
Well, but you know, Charles, that's been gone. I mean,
And Irene, I'm gonna stop right there. Thank you for the comment and the question. I do want to move on here. We have to stop in just a couple minutes. But Irene, thank you for joining the conversation. I did want to ask you, Charles, and we have to finish up in a couple minutes here, and we want to go to Len and Jerry to finish here. But what do you make of the news coverage of the situation between the rail workers and the companies? Do you feel that the news coverage has been fair and balanced, or not necessarily?
I don't really feel like it's been. I honestly feel like it was more of like just a small blip, and just like all news coverage, let's see if we can make something to help whatever party we want, that we want to win. I don't really think they really cared to really get down in the weeds. It's more hey, because the new offer was what, one more PTO day. And then the railroads they'll take into consideration if you need to take off or something like that. I mean, so there's nothing concrete on any of that, and the news coverage just moved on. Mm-hmm. So that's that. So I really can't say that it was positive or whatever, but the news cycle moves so fast. Mm-hmm. That I can't really say it was positive or negative. It was, but I what I've seen on social media is more, there's a lot of people saying, well, they're getting a bonus or they're getting a raise. So, well, that's it, and so it's like this wasn't even about, not even really like majorly about that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. All right. To close us out, I'm going to go to Len, and then Jerry will get the last word. Len.
Okay. I'm wondering, in what way, other than immigration, do you think Donald Trump helped the working class?
Honestly, I wasn't the biggest fan. I wasn't the biggest fan. I really can't say that he did, as far as immigration, it slowed down under him. But one of the things that he never did, or he never really talked about, was punishing companies that are hiring the people. So I really can't really say that he really did a whole lot, that I can really just kind of nail down to say, yeah, he really helped. I mean, keeping energy cheap was one of the things. I mean, as far as gas price, that's huge, especially when for railroad workers, where sometimes your seniority means that you have to drive over an hour to get to work, 60, 70 miles. So when gas is at, gas is still high as far as I'm concerned. When gas is, $3 and $4 a gallon, almost $5 a gallon, and you're having to, even in maintenance away, have to drive to these different, because in maintenance away, I might have to drive from Houston to El Paso to work on a project. So you drive all the way out there, then you're staying in a hotel, inflation's up and things like that. Keeping energy prices or gas prices low, that was keeping the oil flowing was a good thing, and it was good for jobs for me, because we have oil trains, we have coal trains, we have, all that. So, but as far as like helping the middle class, I honestly think that Washington is so totally corrupt that one person on top that wants to help anything, I don't think they can really do it. I mean, it needs to be like a top down, just in Washington, total remake there, as far as I'm concerned. Because there's too many people there that don't care about the middle class at all.
Jerry, let's go to you for the final word.
Okay, well, thank you, Charles. I'd like to stay in touch with you, compare notes as union people. The statistic you gave about retention on the BMW, that's what's happening in our hospitals right now. They hire 30 nurses, and by the end of the month, half of them are gone because the working conditions are so horrendous. So there's nothing, I mean, while your problems are, there's some specific unique things about the railroad, this is infecting the whole economy, many industries. And, and I think that the word, you know, the word has to be out there a lot more than it is about all
Yeah,
of this.
every nurse I know is trying to get away from it.
So,
but Charles, let me ask you before we close, what do you think will happen? Do you think the workers will vote to accept the deal or to strike?
I honestly believe that I think everyone kind of believes at this point, we're just going to roll with it. I have a feeling that's where it's going to go.
To accept the deal.
Yeah, just accept it. I honestly honestly feel like this really was, because looking at some of the stuff that was said in the emails and things, it felt more like a publicity stunt more than anything. Because all of a sudden now you're saying, well, you're seeing in the emails, well, we're going to really send a thank you to Joe Biden and so. I'm like, oh, okay, so I kind of know what's going on here. So it feels like something maybe before the midterms. Let's see if we can get but on the other end, Republicans didn't step up, so here we are. So. And I honestly believe that people are just, at a certain point, I think a lot of those workers, fellow workers, you get so tired that you just say, well, whatever, and just go ahead and accept it. And then it's just going to keep moving in that bad direction or the direction you don't want. And at a certain point, something's going to have to give. That's the ugly part of it. Something's got to give at some point, and it'll happen. Who knows when that'll be? Might be in another couple of years, but we've been, I think it's 3 years that we're out of contract. So the next one will be coming up here soon. so it's just one of those things.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people are going to end up just voting yes, just to because they're tired of dealing with it.
So as we close here, I do want to say that, Braver Angels and We the People's Project in particular, that sense that many people have that you articulated, Charles, of the government not working for citizens, right? That's something that we want to be a part of, bridging that divide, of being part of the solution where we can feel like we have the government of the people, by the people, for the people. And so if you have ideas for, how we could, at Braver Angels, we have an initiative called Braver Politics that's about, engaging with our political leaders and doing it in a Braver Angels way. But I think the sky's the limit here. And so if you have ideas, you're out there and you have ideas for how Braver Angels could be part of improving our political system so that people feel like we do have a government of the people, by the people, for the people. Let's be in touch. Let's talk about these ideas. And also, I did want to invite everyone to next month's We the People's Forum. It's going to be on how should schools talk about transgender issues. We're going to hear from a couple of parents and a couple of educators who have different perspectives on this issue, and see if what we can learn from that conversation and if there's any common ground as well. So Charles, we'd love to have you back at Braver Angels. Thank you so much for joining us, sharing your perspective. We'll let you go back out there on the railroad.
Yeah. I'm hoping that I'll get called. I'm tired of being on the hook at this point, so I'm ready to hurry up and get on back so I can have a little bit of time off before getting called back again.
All right.
Good luck.
All right. Thank you.
Let's go out there and build a house united. Take care, everyone.
All right.